To paraphrase the words of Van Halen, when was the last time you played something for the first time? I'm not talking about a new game in general or a sequel, but the last time you got hands-on with a title and realized that you'd never played anything like it before. For me, the answer was Death Stranding, something that had elements of third-person shooting and environmental traversal, but was ultimately a hiking sim, where buttons were used for balance, climbing, grabbing packages off the ground, or hurling them at enemies. There was a real surprise behind Death Stranding playing its hand over time, and it reminded me just how much the previous generations used to prioritize this notion of not knowing what you were in for. When budgets were more relaxed, a wider set of ideas got greenlit, and chances are that the reason you fell in love with gaming overall was down to not knowing what was next. If there's one major thing the next generation needs, it's new ideas. As take a look across what we left behind, and you'll be wishing that they never went away. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game mechanics we can't believe were left to die. Number 10. Telekinetic powers. Weapon or character-based. Seen in PSYOPs The Mindgate Conspiracy, Second Sight, and Star Wars The Force Unleashed. Yes, Control and Jedi Fallen Order brought this back in 2019, but 1, it was the first telekinesis-based action game in like a decade, and 2, you couldn't pull off anywhere near as much insane business as PSYOPs The Mindgate Conspiracy. See, back in 2004, we had 2 competing titles that both let you smush soldiers' heads into the pavement, with PSYOPs joined by Crytek's more narrative-focused Second Sight. Immediately, it was insanely fun to know entire levels of objects, panes of glass, and ledges could factor into combat. And many of us got to work throwing goons through windows, launching them off cliffs, or just into each other. This natural extension of grappling and throwing enemies was largely carried over to Star Wars The Force Unleashed. But after that, very few, if any, titles have prioritized telekinesis or given you an ability where you can manipulate the environment. In an age where game engines could render thousands of wood splinters, complete terrain deformation, or a damn fine reflection being shattered as you introduce a foe's face to it, why has this not returned in full? Number 9. Takedowns, Stunts, and Carnage. Arcade Racing. Seen in Burnout and Split Second. When it comes to the arcade racing genre, it feels like industry leader Burnout arrived almost fully formed, delivered the phenomenal Burnout 3 Takedown, the million-selling Burnout Paradise, and then nothing else. Criterion's expert blend of slamming rival cars into oblivion was perfectly iterated on with Split Second, a game that let you weaponize Hollywood action set pieces to crush the competition with aeroplanes, boulders, explosions, and everything in between. Then, well, Criterion was snapped up by EA to work on increasingly terrible Need for Speed sequels, and BlackRock were disbanded after Disney refused a split-second sequel. Point being, though, that arcade racing was spectacular. Turn 10's Forza Horizon series is the nearest thing that we have to a truly overblown head-to-head racer where speed is king and snappy controls back everything up. However, there aren't any takedowns, traffic collisions, or signature elements that we used to associate with the genre. Burnout Paradise's remaster getting back to number 1 in the UK proves that there is a huge desire for more of this stuff. And even Dangerous Driving, made by ex-Criterion staff, getting off the ground with its minuscule budget, hopefully indicates that arcade racing can return. Number 8. The Portal Gun. Seen in Portal and Darksiders. Yes, it's a very specific thing, but the portal gun here represents the idea of playing around with a 3D space, in some way that isn't just climbing or surmounting it. Obviously, we have the almighty Portal and its immaculate sequel to go off, but out of nowhere, the first Darksiders also included a portal gun for war to blast from place to place with, albeit in a far more restrictive way. Having gone back through both Portals recently, I was reminded how momentum, inverting perspective, and thinking of open spaces in non-linear ways is a fascinating and rewarding experience. These games even play with using the weapon in combat too, letting you rig portals to drop items on enemies from above, walk behind them to gain the advantage, or open one up on the floor to dodge some bullets. The likes of the Talos Principle had minor teleportation aspects, Outer Wilds works wonders with artifacts and ruins only being seen at certain times of the day, but the fully named Aperture Science handheld portal device deserves to be iterated on in so many new ways. Number 7. Complex and rewarding controls. Seen in Skate. Just what the hell happened to the formerly lovable Skate franchise? After 3 main installments and a couple of spin-offs, the reality of the IP dying came from EA splitting up core staff to other projects, thereby redistributing a team of developers who were skaters themselves. However, nothing was done afterwards to mimic custom control schemes, especially for skateboarding itself. I mean, honestly, when was the last time you had to actively figure out a fresh control idea for a genre or a game? All first-person shooters and cover shooters play the same. The vast majority of third-person action titles share scores of button allocations, but something like using the right analog stick for your feet in Skate never saw any further innovation or even replication. Why, when Skate was so unique, rewarding, and bankable, did this entire method of thinking just go away? Number 6. Uber tricks. Seen in SSX Tricky, NBA Street, and Freakstyle. The opposite side of the coin to in-depth controls and working your way up to kick-flipping onto a grindable ledge is the overblown, patently ridiculous, and stupidly fun likes of Uber tricks. Seen across all of EA Big's games, a studio set up by EA when they used their monetary power for good, these moves were everywhere from SSX Tricky to NBA Street, Freakstyle to the skills of FIFA Street. Overall, they represented that notion of showing off, of starting a game with a bang, of reaching the peak of your skill tree and just having fun with a given set of abilities. In SSX's case, you were soaring through the sky with just your disconnected board and the whistling wind for company. Characters cheered and quipped, fireworks went off all around, the music complemented the visuals by cutting out and slamming back in when you hit the ground. All of these games had such awesome identities, and the EA Big label is remembered fondly. The EA of today feel like a cold-hearted corporate machine of microtransactions and repeat formulas, but showing off in gaming should amount to more than a freaking dab. Number 5. Jumping between multiple playable characters. Seen in Conflict Desert Storm, Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, Brute Force, and Mindjack. What's better than playing as a character or a duo in co-op? Playing as an entire platoon of individuals, all with special attacks, personalities, and ways to tackle the task at hand. Something like Conflict Desert Storm on PS2, for example, let you hop between 4 different soldiers, all equipped with different gear that could be stationed anywhere on the map for the AI to take over. This meant that you could leave a sniper atop a hill, covering your infiltration as you chase a target, knowing that they would take care of any problems automatically. Hardly any games would do anything like this going forward, as the internet meant online multiplayer was the way instead. Brute Force was another awesome Xbox exclusive with squad mechanics where 4 heroes were used at once. And Insomniac's EA-riddled Fuse still had their signature approach to fun weapons across the platoon, providing variety for every mission. Even Driver San Francisco applied this idea to driving, letting you set up crashes or ambushes by jacking into an oncoming car and then cutting off your opponent. Clearly, there's so much more that can be done with both teleportation and solo-based group mechanics. Number 4. Stealth kills, and enemy watching completion methods. Seen in Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid. An entire genre reduced to hide in the tall grass. Other than Hitman flying the flag for careful, procedural, rewarding stealth infiltration and execution, I can only point to Assassin's Creed as a notable franchise that still cares about implementing stealth at all. And that is a massive shame, because both Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid were iconic and successful for a reason. Yes, Metal Gear and stealth overall came from the technical limitations of Hideo Kojima not being able to code a firefight on the ancient MSX hardware, but it did become a staple part of any gamer's diet across the 2000s. Sticking to the shadows, hanging above enemies, watching guard patterns, and even having fun picking off the AI one by one, Batman's Arkham series distilled the latter down to gargoyles and surprising people, but the idea of being a silent predator who expertly slinks from A to B was engaging, intense, and memorable as hell. Ironically, the stealth genre itself seems to have disappeared. Number 3. Overblown arcade versions of sports. Seen in Def Jam, Red Card, and WWE All-Stars. Another point that goes alongside Uber tricks, showing off, and studios like EA Big being household names, games like Def Jam Vendetta, Def Jam Fight for New York, and WWE All-Stars all proved that there was a market for more cartoonified approaches to specific sports. This idea predated Def Jam 2. Nintendo had given us Super Punch-Out and Mario Tennis, and Midway's NBA Jam was legend. Things like Facebreaker and Ready to Rumble applied this mentality to boxing. And even the older WWE SmackDown games were suitably ridiculous. Across the 2010s, though, all of this went away. As mentioned earlier, the nearest you'll get to an arcade racer is Forza Horizon. The Def Jam series died with Def Jam Icon, boxing titles became minigames in VR compilations, and 2K took wrestling down an unbelievably boring simulation route. Bring back arcade sports games, and quick. Number 2, 3D brawlers with environmental interaction. Seen in Urban Rain, The Bouncer, Jackie Chan's Stuntmaster, and Jet Li's Rise to Honor. Whilst River City Girls, Mother Russia Bleeds, and upcoming Streets of Rage 4 all prove that the brawler is going through something of a renaissance thanks to all things 80s being in, just what the hell happened to full-on environmental interaction and 3D takes on the genre? Maybe an entire generation was put off thanks to Square's The Bouncer being a weirdly slow, meandering mess that had a trailer full of lies on how it would play, but things like Namco's Urban Rain were incredibly fun. Speaking of Namco, the Tekken Force mode was an early indication that they already had the technology to make brawling in 3 dimensions damn fun. Throwing a random soldier into a group of his friends as Heihachi Mishima is still one of my fondest Tekken 3 memories, and I wish the mode would make a comeback in itself. Overall though, and sure, maybe it's just me, but how much fun was clearing house in 3D brawlers? Coupled with splintering environments and the ability to take on a room of goons like your favorite martial arts master of choice, you'd like to think that any freeform brawling game would be easy money. And number 1, melee finishers in third-person shooters. Seen in Dead to Rights, The Punisher, and The Order 1886. Maybe this is a form of showing off, but I always go right up to the last person in a given arena of enemies to pull off a melee execution, because it just feels damn fun. At least I used to. Through the likes of Dead to Rights, The Punisher, even something like the James Bond games used to let you complete an area in style. Now, some titles do still let you pull this stuff off. Mafia 3 had face stabbings and fatalities aplenty, while Gears 5 lets you down enemies for a quick torque bow to the throat, but that's about it. Obviously, yes, the medium has advanced and rightfully so. Not every game needs showerings of blood and guts to make it cool, but what happens to fluid, gratifying finishing animations in third-person shooters? And that's my pick of features from yesteryear that I really hope make a return in the future of gaming. Let me know your favorites down in the comments below and if you have any others. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com and I'll catch you soon.